Test. Good. Awesome. How is everybody doing? Lots to cover, lots to talk about. Uh, I think the theme of these streams are I don't have a ton of time to jump on. My hair is all a mess. I'm coming from the gym. And I was thinking the whole time, how much time am I going to have to really talk to you all, to go through all of this, to do it proper justice to all the craziness that is happening at the present moment. And what I came up with was I'm just going to jump on when I can. And I'm going to talk about stuff as long as I possibly can before I have to do the stuff that I need to do, eat and go to bed and work and do my obligations. But I started this to talk to you all and to hopefully get a better understanding of what's happening in the news myself. And slowly but surely, there's been more people coming in and voicing their opinions and talking about their side of things. And I've had friends come in and show love. So it's slow, it's small, but all good things start that way. So we're going to continue to do it, and hopefully the more that I'm able to jump on, the longer I can stream, and the longer I can have some time to really dedicate towards doing some proper research and spending some time with all of you. Having said that, the two main things that are in the forefront of my mind are the protests that are going on in LA, the people that have been harassed in their businesses that have led to protests and ultimately, ICE harassing people that have been here legally, illegally, documented, undocumented. I mean, there was even an ICE agent that tried to detain a U.S. Marshal the other day. He actually did. So it's a mess. And there are, I believe, Los Angeles is 84. Wow, we're getting some drop in frames here. Jeez. Let me try to fix that as best I can. My apologies if it's choppy. I'm gonna dedicate some time to like optimizing this all and really making it look nice. But yes, so the ICE protests that are going on actively in Los Angeles, and there's been protests across the country for the actions of ICE, and also the Maldeen being detained and the updates that have been happening from the flotilla and from Greta Thunberg. And we're going to check in on that. See if active updates that I have not seen. So we're all up to date together. Okay. All right. So let's kind of just jump right in. I'll start off like personal news, checking in with all of you that are watching, even if it's just one person. I had a pretty good day today. Woke up kind of late. I went to like a seafood kind of festival thing in Maine, and it wasn't like a festival. It was more like a gathering of people that were putting out, um, you know, like samples of like oysters and like seafood is a big thing in Maine, specifically. Now that the waters are getting warmer, oysters are a big thing. Oyster farms. There's actually 150 oyster farms I learned that are in Maine, comparative to other states that are like Washington or like the states that border the Pacific. They have like 15. So Maine's kind of killing it in that regard, and I think it's directly because the lobsters are going more north. So it's made it so people are investing more into like oyster farms and harvesting oysters, and it's pretty cool. Hey, Piggy. And the warmer the water gets, the faster they actually mature. And yeah, I did that yesterday. Learned a lot. Actually, did an oyster shucking class. Had some wine. It was a really nice day, and I definitely cannot day drink anymore because I came home and like immediately napped. So uh, I don't. I mean, you gotta continuously drink to keep up with it, and I just could not. Um, let's see. I was told that if I get a little bit closer to the mic, makes sense, right? That my voice will sound better. So hopefully that sounds good. Anyway, um, yeah, if anyone has any stories from today or yesterday, or anyone has anything going on, I don't have anything like major, but it just reminded me of Star Wars. But yeah, um, no major news on my end. Very interested to hear how everybody's day went, how everybody's doing, how everybody's hanging in. Because I mean, there's a lot going on. I'm sure people have some strong opinions on what's going on, and you know, it's like, what do you focus on? What do you do? How can you sift through all the bullshit and uh, receive the incoming bullshit with a fresh pair of eyes and a nervous system that isn't completely overloaded from the previous day and week and month? And it's a very hard balance, and I need to be reminded sometimes to balance it, because from my perspective, I'm very privileged to not be in a war zone, in a place where I'm being oppressed by any means. I am in a very quiet um, place, comparative to where I grew up in Boston. I mean, it Maine is a lot more quiet, and it's a lot more insulated in a way. So I'm trying to strike a balance between keeping up what's going on, making sure that I know enough to relay to people like all of you that want to tune in. And I'm also trying to make sure that I can show up for myself and show up for everybody else. And yeah, it's a hard balance. It's a very, very hard balance. And I have to be reminded sometimes to disconnect. And it's a hard, hard thing, because there's so many people that are struggling. There's so many people that are suffering. There's so many people out there that need help. And you don't want to seem like you're struggling as well, and you're just reading about what's going on and you're watching what's going on passively from across the world, across the country. But it is a thing. You can't be an ally. You can't be an advocate if you're burnt out. So my advice that I have received from others is take some time and make sure that you're able to show up for others and yourself. Having said that, I don't have a ton of time. So we'll jump into kind of like a cursory thing of like what's going on in LA, the updated stuff. We'll see how much time we have. We're under time constraints. I do have some major things or like major themes that I want to cover, and we'll kind of just breeze right through it. So I do want to start off with this. This is from Vox, and I think it will be constructive as to explain why there are so many undocumented immigrants. And I don't know if the video, I haven't seen the video yet, but I don't know if it's going to cover, like why people have such a negative perception on illegal immigrants. I don't think it will get into that, but maybe I can talk about it a little bit and why our current political sphere has us our current political iteration has us so inclined towards being angry at minority groups and being angry at groups that are disadvantaged. So we'll hopefully talk about that, but I wanted to start off with this.
In the early 1990s, one contentious issue was hard to miss: immigration.
Is immigration good for America?
The federal government won't stop them at the border.
Spend $5.5 billion a year to support them.
There's a right way and there's a wrong way.
At the time, there were around 5 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S. And most Americans saw immigrants as a burden on the country, taking jobs, housing, and healthcare, and thought immigration as a whole should be decreased.
Our country is invaded by immigrants who are like cancer cells.
That same year, Republicans ran on a tough-on-immigration platform and took control of Congress. Democrats were pushed to adopt tough positions on immigration, too.
We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws.
In 1996, President Bill Clinton signed a major piece of legislation, the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act, or IRA-IRA. Its goal was to decrease the number of undocumented immigrants. It did the opposite. Before the 1990s, undocumented immigration into the U.S. looked very different. For one, it was usually temporary.
People used to go back and forth across the border. They would go north and, for the harvest, and they would earn some money, and they would go back to Mexico.
And if they wanted to come live permanently in the U.S., there were a few legal channels, but not many. If they married an American citizen, they could get lawful status. Or if maybe their brother was a citizen already, he could sponsor them. Or an employer could. And these could be done after they were already living in the U.S. undocumented. Before 1996, the threat of deportation was relatively low. People were commonly deported for committing a crime, and it was mostly limited to major crimes like murder or trafficking. But IRA-IRA, together with other 1996 laws, drastically expanded deportable crimes to even minor infractions like shoplifting. It was also retroactive. So say it's 1976 and someone is caught stealing some albums from the mall. They wouldn't be deported. Over the next 20 years, they never commit another crime. But after 1996, they could be deported because of that old misdemeanor. And not just if they were currently undocumented. This applied to immigrants with lawful status too. And previously, an immigration judge could decide if the deportation should even take place. Now things were a little more automatic.
Ignoring the fact that those deportations would be extremely harmful to U.S. citizen children or to spouses.
Deportations skyrocketed, and IRA-IRA created the framework for future laws that further expanded reasons people could be deported, especially after 9/11. But IRA-IRA also made another huge fundamental change in the U.S. immigration system.
One of the aspects of the 1996 law that is particularly strict and I think in many respects inhumane is the so-called 3 and 10 year bars.
Those 3 and 10 year bars made these legal pathways nearly impossible to obtain. They work like this. Anyone who's been undocumented in the US for 6 months and wants to gain legal status first has to leave the country and be barred from returning for 3 years. If they've been undocumented for more than a year, they're barred for 10 years. So if they want to get lawful status through a job, they first have to leave the US for 10 years. Or through their brother, leave for 10 years. Or through their spouse, leave for 10 years.
It's family separation by another name. The bars were intended to try to essentially create punishments that were so severe to deter people essentially from coming here. But as we've seen with many other deterrence-based policies, the practical effect is very different.
Instead, it incentivized people to stay in the US undocumented. Before IRA, Mexican immigrants who came to the US unlawfully were about 50% likely to return to Mexico within a year. But after 1996, more people started staying in the US. There were around 5 million undocumented immigrants living at the US before IRA. Today, it's at least double that.
And we are somehow surprised by this outcome. This is of our own doing.
Laws like IRA shaped the way the U.S. focuses on immigration enforcement as a deterrent. But really, it proved that stronger enforcement doesn't actually stop undocumented immigration.
These laws or the politics in the 90s didn't really change the reasons why people come to the United States.
Today, views on immigrants are very different than they were in the 1990s. Most Americans now see them as a strength, not a burden. But the laws created here haven't changed.
Requirements and standards that were created decades ago that aren't responsive to our needs as a nation, they certainly aren't responsive to the needs of immigrant populations.
The idea that if we only had more guns, if we only built a higher wall, that we'd solve all the problems, I think we learned from 96 that's not the way it works. It's not that simple.
So that's kind of a primer. There are a lot of people that staying in the United States, they're directly incentivized to stay in the United States. And while they're here, they're waiting on their paperwork to be basically processed. And all the while they're working, they're contributing to our economic system, they're contributing to our GDP, they're contributing into our system. They're not receiving, as I went over in the last stream, Medicaid, and they're not receiving Social Security benefits, and they're paying into the system. So it's that much more insidious when we start to go through this and we start to get up to the present, which we'll jump to the present in a moment. Here is these people are waiting on a system that is backed up, that is inefficient on purpose, and they're trying to ultimately, with the present admin, try to get rid of birthright citizenship, which is in our Constitution. And it's all making it so you have a humanitarian crisis at the border, an even worse humanitarian crisis at the border. And these people are in communities that they've been in for years and years and years, working, contributing, and they're being harassed. And literally the difference between someone living out their life how they have been and being deported and renditioned to a facility and potentially being cut off from their family, being tortured, as we've seen with some people, and possibly losing their life, is answering the door and complying with ICE, which is why LA is pissed. LA is having these protests. And I will say that keeping an eye on things, that the protests have started out and have been mostly peaceful. They've started out as peaceful, and as what happens so often is you have agitation and raising of the temperature and direct incitement by the police. And now you have the added variables of the National Guard and now the U.S. military with the Marines just recently being deployed. And the Marines do not have the training to deal with crowd dispersement, de-escalation techniques, which we will go through. This is just something I dinner's hot and ready. Okay, sweet. I'll try to go through this as quickly as possible, but I want to give it its time, so I'm okay with eating a little bit like less than hot food, just so I you know, do this justice. So, Bernie Sanders said something through Twitter today, and I think he's been flamed for it on either side. But let's just see what he said. So, I appreciate that. Dr. King defeated racist government officials and ended segregation through disciplined, nonviolent resistance. Defeating Trumpism, oligarchy, and authoritarianism requires that same level of discipline. Violent protests are counterproductive and play right into Trump's playbook. There's so many issues with this because, one, Dr. King, it's revisionist history. He had some violent elements to his protesting. He even embraced and not embraced, but said it was a natural cause of civil rights. It was a natural part of the civil rights process. He was also, and it's also whitewashed, he was an avid socialist. He engaged in solidarity, and he engaged in these sit-ins, which were mostly nonviolent. But there were some violent elements to Dr. King's civil rights movement. And so Bernie's engaging in some revisionist history here. He's also implying that the protests that are happening in LA have been violent, which they didn't start out that way. And as we've seen with a lot of BLM protests, is you have counter protesters, you have agitation from the police, you have all of these different variables making it so it escalates. And that you have some also bad actors that come in, like the Umbrella Man. That's actually interesting, where we'll see a reminder that the man who ignited violence at a George Floyd protest was ID'd by police as a white supremacist conspiring to harm the cause of racial justice. Felt like that's an important to share as we observe the Trump regime spew an onslaught of disinformation about LA. And I've been personally seeing several people, one of which, the main one's Hassan, has been in LA, and the protests have been very, very well coordinated. Have been like LA isn't on fire, like some news outlets try to say. It's funny because LA is a huge, huge city. There are people that have like very little knowledge about what's going on in parts of LA. And a lot of the initial stages of it were just people trying to peacefully assemble, and ultimately, and it doesn't always, look great to the people that are on the other side across the country. that are directly not affected by it, but they are blocking traffic and stuff like that. And these things often are small incremental movements as a response to the previous means of activism and protesting, when they do not work and they are met with oppression and they are met with violence from the state. So the temperature increasingly goes up and increasingly goes up. It doesn't just happen all of a sudden, like flash in a pan in a vacuum, like I think some people on the other side of the aisle would like to believe, and it would like to propagandize to ultimately discredit the movement altogether. And it happens over and over and over again. We go back to King. We go back to a lot of these movements. They are co-opted. They are shown in a negative light, and it kills momentum a lot of the time. But like people like this, Umbrella Man has never been identified, nor has his political affiliation. A Minneapolis Star Tribune reporter speculated that he might be a far-right activist, but no evidence of that notion. And that's the thing, is people ultimately will do the work for the state and say stuff like that, and then you look and it's like he was identified, and according to the Minneapolis Star Tribune, investigator Erica Christensen wrote in a search warrant affidavit filed this week that the man's actions created a hostile environment, sparked a series of events that turned peaceful protesters chaotic. She said she believed his sole aim was to incite violence. Minneapolis police spokesman John Elder told NPR he's unable to comment on the investigation, which is open and active. NPR has not seen the affidavit and is not naming the man because he's not been charged with a crime. It's just like that stuff happens all of the time. Is people will come in as bad actors and will try to ultimately they're suspected outside extremists, and they try to inflame tensions. So just a word of caution with looking at, you know, some of the burning cars. I mean, after the Seahawks won, there's burning cars after the Super Bowl. It's like, did the National Guard get deployed? Did the Marines get deployed? Philadelphia goes crazy every time, like whether they win or lose. And, you know, everybody loves them for it, but like let's be real. Like I believe the admin is inflaming these protests and deploying the National Guard, deploying the Marines in order to turn up the temperature. And it's not to quell protesting. That's not what's going to happen. A lot of people think, and rightfully so, you increase the police presence, you bring in the National Guard, which the National Guard is really protecting only federal buildings usually, but then you bring in the Marines, which that's a wild card. So let's quickly get into this.
The mayor of Los Angeles and California's governor are all demanding an end to immigration raids by federal agents.
Now the state plans to file a lawsuit against President Trump's administration for deploying the National Guard to confront protesters. However, the president says he's now mobilizing about 700 Marines until more National Guard troops arrive.
Jay Gray tonight reports from the middle of it all in downtown LA.
Good evening, and the smell of pepper spray whipped up by street cleaners.
Also, there was a Australian reporter that, if you look back in the video, I'll try to bring it up. She was reporting, and let me see if I can bring it up. She was targeted by a non-lethal bullet, and she was shot in the leg. just want the video. There we go.
You just shut the fuck up! After hours of standing off, this situation has now rapidly deteriorated. The LAPD moving in on horseback, firing rubber bullets at protesters, moving them on through the heart of LA. You just shut the fuck up! You okay? I'm good.
Are you okay? I mean, yeah, there is most certainly.
Police in Las Vegas this morning are
most certainly going to be dangers in protesting. But that officer, there was no direct issues. There was no direct violence upon the police. There was no direct need for that officer. You could see all of them standing uniform side by side, and he turns and fires at her knowing that she's being filmed. It's I don't want to come off as I'm cherry picking certain videos. This is another one. And that kind of comment right there is extremely telling. It's just people saying and justifying the police coming in and using violence against all of the protesters. And what happens is you have bad actors that are, and I condemn it, people that are looting businesses, people that are treating an actual protest as a basically an open convention to be able to commit crime and loot and basically bring down the entire event. But it doesn't. It's small actors compared to the larger movement, and the police ultimately treat everybody the same, and basically the police create the conditions in which people are basically the police are escalating it to the point where they are treating everyone like they are lighting businesses on fire when they are not.
There's heavy in the air here right now. So is the tension on both sides of the police line as LA braces for what many fear will be another night of confrontations and chaos here. Burned out cars, broken glass and debris litter the streets of downtown Los Angeles. Remnants from a weekend of violence. Thousands of protesters, police, and the National Guard squaring off as sweeping immigration raids continue across the city.
What ICE did in the last couple of days is make Los Angeles safer by taking public safety threats off the street.
Dozens have been detained. Family members speaking publicly for the first time today say most are simple, hard-working laborers.
I'm here today on behalf of my father and the dozens of families who were kidnapped by ICE. I witnessed how they put my father in handcuffs, chained him from the waist and from his ankles.
She says the detainees haven't been allowed to communicate with lawyers or their families.
Donald Trump, at the end of the day, is the sponsor of these conditions.
California Governor Gavin Newsom accusing the president of manufacturing a crisis, federalizing 2,000 of the state's National Guard soldiers, deploying around 300 so far. A move being challenged now in court.
I, in partnership with Governor Gavin Newsom, are suing President Trump. Trump and Hegseth ignored law enforcement's expertise and guidance and trampled over our state's, California's, sovereignty.
Undeterred, President Trump says the raids and show of force.
It hasn't happened in over a decade where the president went over the state to deploy the National Guard. It's very unprecedented.
Will continue.
We're going to have troops everywhere.
500 California-based Marines now on standby, ready to move in. Homeland Security says the immigration operation could last for, quote, several more days. LAPD tells us that at least 9 officers have been injured. None of those injuries, though, considered life-threatening. Jay Gray, NBC News, Los Angeles.
And tonight we're learning that Dr. Phil joined ICE agents at the field office in LA during the immigration raids.
The former daytime talk show host and his camera crew were there on Friday. And a spokesperson says the video that they shot is going to be used for a special report on Dr. Phil Prime that airs on Merit TV. Representatives for that channel say he wanted a firsthand view of the situation, but that he was not embedded.
That he's using people being taken away from their families and their neighborhood and their community. These people that the administration is painting as being violent. He's using it as a way to capitalize off of it and to monetize people's pain. Let's just be clear and let's just put that out there. And he's acting like he's basically being an actor for propaganda for the state, which is nuts. Like, just nuts. Like, your show hasn't been popular in quite some time, and you're like the My Pillow guy. Like, you're trying to jump into this fraught like state right now, and you're trying to monetize it. That's wild. That's wild. So he today activated 700 Marines in Los Angeles amid ICE protests, joining the National Guard troops who were sent to the city to respond to protests. U.S. Northern Command said in a statement, members of the Marine Corps could start arriving in Los Angeles as soon as Tuesday, a defense official told CBS News. The Marines are based in 29 Palms, a city east of Los Angeles. Northern Command said the Marines will seamlessly integrate with hundreds of members of the National Guard to protect federal personnel and federal property. They have been trained in de-escalation, crowd control, and standing rules for the use of force, the military added. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, who said Monday that around 700 Marines are being deployed to Los Angeles to restore order. I don't know why it's kind of cutting off my face a little bit. Excuse me. Just want to see if I can fix this. Voila. All right. We fixed it on the fly. So, Northern Command said the Marines who were activated are from the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marine Regiment, an infantry unit based in 29 Palms, California, east of Los Angeles. Hegseth said the Marines are being deployed from a different base, Camp Pendleton, south of Los Angeles. When asked earlier today about the possibility of sending in Marines, President Trump said, "We'll see what happens." Love that. Just like today when he said, do you want to have Gavin Newsom arrested? He's like, yeah, it sounds great. So we'll see, obviously, what happens. I mean, Gavin Newsom, instead of going on podcasts and giving a a platform to people like Charlie Kirk and normalizing his points of view, he should actually put his money where his mouth is. He should just go. He should go to the front lines. He should go down to City Hall. He should go and actually, be an ally. But we'll see. Gavin is not a solid ally in my mind. But California Governor Gavin Newsom office said on X earlier Monday it does not believe the Marines have been deployed yet, writing, "From our understanding, this is moving Marines from one base to another base." Mr. Trump deployed National Guard troops to downtown Los Angeles over the weekend to respond to tense protests over immigration and custom enforcement arrests. The Trump administration argues the deployment is necessary. Numerous incidents of violence and disorder have recently occurred and threatened to continue in response to the enforcement of federal law by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and other U.S. government personnel who are performing federal functions in supporting the faithful execution of federal immigration laws. So, encroaching on people's civil liberties and illegally detaining people and harassing people when a lot of the time they don't have a warrant. This actually happened. City of Glendale has ICE detainee holding contract terminated. The city of Glendale has actually made the decision to formally terminate its agreement with the U.S. Homeland Security and U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement to house federal immigration detainees at the Glendale Police Facility. This is a local decision and was not made lightly. Since 2007, the city has maintained a highly regulated, locally controlled facility that is maintained to the higher standards, extending basic dignities to those temporarily held, ensuring access to clean accommodations, on-call medical care, family visitation. Nevertheless, despite the transparency and the safeguards the city has upheld, the city recognizes that public perception of the ICE contract, no matter how limited or carefully managed, no matter the good, has become divisive. And while opinions on the issue may vary, the decision to terminate this contract is not politically driven. It is rooted in what the city stands for: public safety, local accountability, and trust. They're definitely covering their ass there, but that's a big move. And I hope it continues to happen.
Multiple simultaneous federal raids happening involving Homeland Security, leading to clashes in downtown LA. Stu Mandel live up in Skyfox to tell us all about it. Stu?
Hey, Sandra, this is going to be one of two locations, or actually three locations, that Skyfox has been over this afternoon. This one seems to be the most active. Now, this is going to be in the downtown Los Angeles area near the corner of 15th and Santa Fe. This is the Ambience headquarters, and that is one of the other places that they were targeting in downtown, the showroom, actually in the downtown area off of 15th and Town. But they've also been hitting up the Home Depots, at least two of them, in the Los Angeles area as well. I can tell you, since Skyfox has been here, they've been put at least 5 people inside that van that you see right there. Now, it has definitely gotten a lot more tense out here in the last couple of minutes, and LAPD has arrived as well. Usually, LAPD stays away from any of these type of raids, but in this case, it is crowd control is why they're here and what's going on. Moments before we went live, there was a large crowd in front of this gate right here. They opened that gate up to allow a van that looks like the one that's in there in as to take possibly to take away some other people, or even maybe some of their own FBI and other agents that are in that area, because there is a number of them, meaning probably about 20 or more inside that fenced area. While that was going on, a large scuffle took place. People were trying to block the van. Agents came out and were actually physically fighting with some of those protesters, and one of them got tossed to the ground. That person taken into handcuffs later, but that was when the crowd really started to gang up on those agents. They brought him inside the store, inside this building, and that's the reason why the fire department is here. The fire department showed up basically for medical use, or to check out the injuries to that person they took into custody. Take a look at what's going on. LAPD, they've been arriving. They've been setting up a skirmish line out here, trying to keep the public away from that front gate. It does seem like whatever was happening inside this building in downtown is coming to a close. We've been watching agents coming out, getting into vehicles. They're lining up those vehicles near that front gate. So this might be coming to an end. Now we see some tape from another location. I'm not sure which one this is, but if this is the one in downtown, off of Town and 9th, this one was also very emotional. One of the folks that was looking at inside that window earlier on when we were there was crying and getting very, very emotional about what was going on. You can see they had multiple agencies here. It's not just Homeland Security. They can't use, or they will not use, LAPD to orchestrate these raids. So they have to lean on other agencies. That would be Homeland Security. That would be FBI and other federal agencies that come and assist in these ICE raids. So right now, it definitely seems like something's going on at the gate. Maybe some information is being passed back and forth. I believe that some of these are relatives that have arrived here looking for their loved ones that may be taken into custody. And if that's the case, what's happening?
That's crazy that their relatives are looking for them, and it's creating these rifts within the community because people are being ripped away from their family members. I actually, at the event that I was talking about at the beginning of the stream, there was a girl that I met. She is a couple. She's with a guy, and it was a couple that I met, and the guy is from Brunswick, Maine, and he met her at a bar in Portland, and they are really, really great couple. She is from Germany, the Bavarian region of Germany, and she's been coming to Maine her entire life, but because of the recent Trump administration policies, her work visa just got denied. So she has to go back home. And it's now creating a rift within their relationship, causing them stress and causing them uncertainty. And when you talk to people in real life, and we are not even like in LA, I'm not even in LA right now, and the countless amount of people that are being affected by these raids, I'm just talking to one couple from across the country that are not even being harassed by ICE, and they are experiencing hardship. They are experiencing stress and undue stress from these administration's policies. And it's like, are we really? What do we stand for as a country? Like the, I actually am going to bring up. It's a poem by Emma Lazarus, and it's the New Colossus. It's about the Statue of Liberty. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Yet keep ancient lands, your storied pomp cries with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me, or tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. And there is another poem. I will search for it. Find it. So, in response to the poem that was written by Emma Lazarus, here's another poem. If read it. This is written by a man named Thomas Bailey Aldrich. Wide open and unguarded stands our gates, named of the four winds, north, south, east, and west, portals that lead to an enchanted land of cities, forests, fields of living gold, vast prairies, lordly summits, touched with snow, majestic rivers sweeping proudly past, the Arab date palm and the Norseman's pine, a realm wherein are fruits of every zone, heirs of all climes, for lo, throughout the year the red roses blossom somewhere. I feel like we can skip. Wide open and unguarded stand our gates, and through them pressing a wild motley throng, men from the Volga and the Tartar steppes, featureless figures of the Hung-Ho, Malayan, Scythian, Teuton, Celt, and Slav, flying the old world's poverty and scorn, these bringing with them unknown gods and rights, those tiger passions here to stretch their claws in streets and alleys where strange tongues are loud, accents of menace aliens to our air, voices that once the Tower of Babel knew. O liberty, white goddess, is it well to leave these gates unguarded? On thy breast fold sorrow's children, soothe the hurts of fate, lift the downtrodden, but with hands of steel stay those who to thy sacred portals come to waste the gifts of freedom. Have a care lest from thy brow the clustered stars to be torn and trampled into dust, for so of old the thronging Goth and Vandal trample Rome, where the temples of Caesar stood, the lean wolf unmolested made her lair. So you have two very contrasting poems about immigration and xenophobia and white supremacy, obviously, talking about how there's just streets where you can't understand anyone talking, and how if we let in too many people, we're going to be like the Roman Empire, trampled and taken advantage of. And you have two very different perspectives. And I believe in what a lot of people believe is the actual meaning of the Statue of Liberty and what we were trying to do up until after World War I, where we really tried to tampen down specifically not allowing Jewish people to come in during that period and up until the Second World War. And we were using it as justification to have basically an amount of people that we were letting in, and it was a very, very small amount for specific races, specific countries, and it ultimately led to some of the atrocities that were seen and the pogroms that were inflicted upon the Jewish people, that they didn't have a safe haven. They didn't have a place to go. They were not let into a lot of European countries as well. And the United States has only itself to blame for that. FDR wanted to let more Jewish people in, but he was hampered by a specifically conservative Congress. So, different perspectives, and we shall see how the forced removal, and you can go to the removal of the Japanese and Japanese internment camps in the United States, also done by FDR, and the implications of that, and putting people in camps and stripping people away from their families, and the generational trauma that caused. And all of this has implications. All of this has reverberations and effects. This doesn't just go away. It creates generational resentment and pain.
The city, and we begin with Liz Kreutz. Liz, let's start with the Marines being called in tonight.
Yeah, Tom, so officials calling in 700 Marines that are being mobilized here. They're not here in LA yet, but they are on their way. You can see there's a large crowd that is gathered here. Those Marines, we're told, are experts in de-escalation and crowd control, and they're going to join those 2,000 National Guard troops. Some of them you see right there at this federal building, facing off now with protesters. Tonight, a massive group of protesters again taking to the streets of LA.
In this country, no human is illegal.
The city of Angels on edge after violent clashes over the weekend. Police in riot gear facing off with protesters who oppose immigration enforcement operations carried out by ICE agents. Tonight, President Trump saying he made a great decision to send 2,000 National Guard soldiers to the city.
People that are causing the problem are professional agitators, they're insurrectionists.
California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom opposed the president's move, saying Trump was manufacturing chaos and violence.
You had a disaster happening. I feel we had no choice. I don't want to see happen what happened so many times in this country. I watched Minneapolis burn.
All of this erupting in response to ICE immigration enforcement operations. More than 100 undocumented immigrants arrested last week. DHS saying most had final deportation orders, some with criminal records, including domestic violence and robbery. Mayor Karen Bass calling on residents to express their anger peacefully and blaming the president for inflaming the unrest.
I don't want people to fall into the chaos that I believe is being created by the administration completely unnecessarily.
The confrontations escalating over the weekend. This video showing DHS agents pelted with objects while inside their vehicle. And here, a restaurant worker helping a sheriff's deputy who appeared to be pepper sprayed.
Tonight we had individuals out there shooting commercial-grade fireworks at our officers. That can kill you.
Police firing non-lethal rounds to disperse the crowds. One.
So can a non-lethal bullet.
And hitting this reporter. The protesters taking over one of LA's busiest freeways, bringing traffic Sunday to a standstill. Crowds above throwing rocks and incendiary devices at officers. An electric scooter landing on the hood of a police car. We're here on 101 right now. Protesters have shut down the freeway. You can see flashbangs have been going off. Police are closing in. Protesters are running southbound. Let's go. Our team pulling back to avoid the tear gas. Later, we watched as protesters vandalized multiple Waymo self-driving vehicles that got stuck in the chaos.
Things are escalating now. Protesters have lit 2 Waymo self-driving cars on fire. You can see the flames here.
Police cars and this American flag also set ablaze. During the clashes, many protesters waving.
Which I don't know if anyone has any thoughts about this in their head. Burning the flag is protected by your First Amendment rights, and I can bring up the Supreme Court decision that allows it to be. Trump actually wanted to make it a felony, and it directly goes against precedent that designates that as a protected First Amendment right, burning the flag. Just wanted to put that out there.
Mexican flags, what's become a symbol of resistance against ICE.
I'm flying this proudly because it's a product of my personal identity, my ancestors.
Protesters opposing the National Guard deployment.
What do you think about the National Guard being brought in?
I think that it's ridiculous because where was the National Guard on January 6th?
This violence that I've seen is disgusting. We are overwhelmed as far as the number of people out there engaged in this type of activity.
The LAPD chief asked about the presence of the National Guard, saying he thought local authorities could handle it, but he's now reassessing.
Do we need them? Well, looking at it tonight, this thing has gotten out of control.
Liz Kreutz joins us once again from the scene of those protests. Liz, we saw what happened this weekend. Walk our viewers through what's happening tonight.
Yeah, so right now, this is a large crowd of people that's continuing to grow. It's about 3 different protests, Tom, that are now converging in this one location here outside this federal building where we're seeing the National Guard. We weren't seeing this last night. Los Angeles has just announced a tactical alert citywide here. There's a lot of anger. They're shouting at these officers, but mostly so far it has been peaceful. That's what we're hearing from officers as well. But the big concern is as we head.
We'll see how that changes tonight. Usually it gets a little bit more contentious as the night goes on. Officers rely on the cover of darkness a little bit to put the pressure on protesters. And then there are protesters that take advantage of the night where they will act out in violent means, which I do not condone. I don't condone violence, whether it's state condoned violence or state-led violence, and I don't condone violence on the behest of the protesters. I can only say that it is sometimes going to take place because of the escalation that happens. So while I don't condone it, it is sometimes what's called blowback. It is a natural because we don't have a valve that releases this pressure, the amount of pressure that's being put on these communities, the majority communities that are Hispanic in LA. And just to kind of go over, I did take some notes because people might be confused as to like what ICE is directly doing. That's like they are coming in and detaining people, and they're probably wondering like what rights they're infringing upon. Can't ICE just go in and just grab anyone that they know that they might have intel on that is an illegal immigrant or is undocumented or whatever? But what they are doing is they're conducting these raids without judicial warrants a lot of the time, instead of using civil administration warrants, which don't authorize home entry. And there's also, obviously, racial profiling. I brought it up at the beginning, where the U.S. Marshal, I'll bring up the article. U.S. immigration agents mistakenly detain deputy marshal in Arizona. Deputy marshal fit the general description of a subject being sought. All right. So racial profiling during these stops raised concerns that people are being targeted based on ethnicity or their language, which is profiling. And we've seen in predominantly African American communities the type of over-policing that leads to civil liberties being encroached upon, people being incarcerated at higher rates, and we've seen that African Americans are ultimately arrested more, but they are exonerated at much higher rates than any other ethnicity group, which shows that there's over-policing. So the right of the people to be secured in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizures shall not be violated. It's in the Constitution. It doesn't say U.S. citizens, the right of the people. Right of the people. Okay. Then you'll hear the Fifth Amendment. So the direct concerns about ICE are immigrants, including those with legal claims to remain, are often denied fair hearings or face prolonged detaining or detentions without bond hearings. And the fifth element also applies to persons, not just citizens, meaning non-citizens of the U.S. So no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And that's what we saw with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and that's why we've seen this with the woman that was detained in Somerville, Massachusetts. We've seen this with countless amount of people. I've almost like lost the names at the forefront of my mind. It's happened so many times. And that's and all the nameless people that are harassed and detained by ICE. And then you also, in conjunction with that, have the 14th Amendment. Through this amendment applies to states. Its principles reinforce federal standards of due process and equal protection, which are often cited when ICE collaborates with local law enforcement, which in way that deny non-citizens fair treatment. The text of the amendment says, "Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protections of the law," which often get encroached upon. There's also the 8th Amendment. Conditions in ICE detention centers, which you will see many, many articles commenting on ICE detention centers and the abhorrent conditions of them, including medical neglect, physical abuse, and unsafe environments, have been cited by third-party, nonpartisan watchdogs in courts as potentially violating this amendment. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. This is the 8th Amendment. Protection against cruel and unusual punishment. There is also the First Amendment. A lot of people don't know what the fuck the First Amendment says. Okay, ICE targets immigrants who speak out against immigration policy. We've seen this time and time again, including activists and protesters, even people that have co-authored articles for their college. Some lawsuits allege ICE tracked and retaliated against those involved in immigration rights and organizing. They're trying to make it illegal in states to say free Palestine, or from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. They're trying to make that a factor of hate speech. So Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or the right of the people to peacefully assemble. there is also the Sixth Amendment, or the international and statutory law and right to seek asylum. This is not a constitutional amendment. I will just say that now, but it's U.S. law. International agreements like the Refugee Convention guarantee the right to seek asylum. Blocking asylum at the border, detaining asylum seekers, or returning them to dangerous conditions without due process violates both U.S. and international obligations. Okay, so now you see why people are so upset by what ICE is doing. They are so upset by what their brothers and sisters and comrades and co-workers are facing. This is why. Read the Constitution. Be familiar with it. It is the governing document for the country that you live in. These rights that are not just taken for, you can't take them for granted. You have to know, right? Do you think every government actor, whether a police officer or, someone on the street or going up all the way to the President of the United States is going to respect your rights at any given time? No. Know them. Be familiar with them. Your neighborhood, the people that are making things that you enjoy, the people that are your neighbors, the people that are your coworkers, the people that are your friends are being harassed and taken away from their family and friends. This isn't something to be taken lightly. This is why we see so much contention against ICE, and we see so much fervor in these protests. People are upset for all of the reasons that I listed and more. This just shows the disconnected communication between the U.S. government and local officials. LAPD chief, police had no formal notification of Marines' deployment to LA. The Los Angeles Department raised concerns Monday about the deployment of 700 Marines to LA in response to 4 days of fiery protests sparked by federal immigration raids. The state's Democratic leaders have pushed back against President Trump's invocation of the military in the state to shut down protests against federal immigration enforcement. U.S. Northern Command announced Monday that about 700 Marines were activated to Los Angeles to protect the federal personnel and property. Always personnel and property over human lives, and you see that with police officers as well. Newsom said it was un-American for the Marines to be deployed to LA, responding to protests, unrest. The U.S. Marines have served honorably across multiple wars in defense of democracy. They're heroes. They shouldn't be deployed on American soil facing their own countrymen to fulfill the deranged fantasy of a dictatorial president. I don't always agree with what he says, but I agree. Just kind of wrapping things up, we have updates about the flotilla. Israel kills 60 in Gaza. Greta Thunberg, Maldeen crew to be deported. Israeli forces have killed 60 in Gaza, including 14 people near the U.S.-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation Aid Center. With the U.S. has backed this with Israel. Israel has detained the Maldeen's 12 crew members, including Swedish activist Greta Thunberg and Al Jazeera's journalist Omar Fayyad, after towing the ships to Israel's Ashdod port, their lawyer told Al Jazeera. They throw their phones overboard too, and we'll see. She recorded this video, obviously,
My name is
because she knew that she'd be harassed.
Greta Thunberg, and I am from Sweden. If you see this video, we have been intercepted and kidnapped in international waters by the Israeli occupational forces or forces that support Israel. I urge all my friends, family and comrades to put pressure on the Swedish government to release me and the others as soon as possible.
It's pretty harrowing knowing you're going to be detained for trying to provide aid. To people that have been purposely starved and murdered in mass. I just wanted to finish up. I know there's so many things I have not covered, and there's just so much ultimately that I would love to talk about. I have to eat, unfortunately. I do have to do that from time to time. But I want people to know, kind of like going with the theme here of knowing what your rights are. The ACLU post a fantastic breakdown of knowing your rights. Your rights for protesting, I think everybody should at least protest once. I mean, there's so many different causes. There's so many things to pay attention to. These are your fellow countrymen that are being harassed, as we've seen. This is a pretty important issue. So if you are going to protest, you need to know your rights. You need to know and come prepared. Do the research. We can talk about some quick things right now. So your rights are strongest in what's known as traditional public forums, such as street, sidewalks, and parks. You're likely to have the right to speak out on other public property like plazas in front of government buildings, as long as you are not blocking access to the government building or interfering with other purposes the property was designed for. Private property owners can set rules for speech on their property. The government may not restrict your speech if it is taking place on your own property or with the consent of the property owner. Counter-protesters also have free speech rights, and this is something that you'll see in every large protest. There's counter-protesters, and there's agitators, and there's different collaborators will try to go against the ultimate goals of the main protest at hand. Police must treat protesters and counter-protesters equally. You don't always see that. Police are permitted to keep antagonistic groups separate, which should allow them to be within sight and sound of one another. When you are lawfully present in any public space, you have the right to photograph anything in plain view. There is a ton of people and a ton of police officers that will try to stop you from doing this, including federal buildings and the police. On private property, the owners may set rules related to photography or video. Private property. So you don't need a permit to march in the streets or in a sidewalk, as long as marchers don't obstruct cars or pedestrian traffic. If you don't have a permit, police officers can ask you to move to the side or to a street or sidewalk to let others pass, or safety reasons. People are going to cite this as, oh my God, well, there's people in LA and they're blocking traffic. Yes, because the police, the National Guard, and now the president is directly from a top-down way in inciting and elevating the tension of these protests, and already elevating the tensions of people that are already pissed off for all the reasons that I listed. This is an incremental thing. It doesn't happen all just out of the blue. It's incremental to get attention, to get the nation's attention, to draw attention to the issue. But if you are a part of a protest, and you are a part of a protest across the country, or you're running a protest, keep these things in mind. Certain types of events may require permits, these including a march or a parade that requires blocking traffic or street closures, while certain permit procedures require submitting an application as well as in advance of the planned event. Police can't use those procedures to prevent a protest in response to breaking news events. Restrictions on the route of a march or sound equipment might violate the First Amendment if they are unnecessary for traffic control or public safety, or if they interfere significantly with effective communication to the intended audience. A permit cannot be denied because the event is controversial or will express unpopular views. If the permit regulation that applies to your protest require a fee or a permit, they should allow a waiver for those who cannot afford the charge. So if you think your rights have been violated, you can write down everything you remember, including the officer badge number, patrol car number, get contact information or witnesses. There's often lawyers and press and different people that attend, and they're usually on the outside, on the flanks of the main group, when there's either protests directly going against police or just protests in general. You will see people there that are lawyers that are making sure people's rights are not infringed upon. But be your own best advocate. Take photographs of any injuries. Get contact information for witnesses. Sometimes there's field medics. If you are injured, go to a field medic. Once you have all this information, you can file a written complaint with the agency's Internal Affairs Division or Civilian Complaint Board. And then I'm not going to go through all of this, but I urge you, go through the ACLU, select a scenario. I'm organizing a protest. I'm attending a protest. There's different things that you can bring. Make sure you have plenty of water. I wouldn't recommend bringing your phone or anything that can connect to Bluetooth. Make sure if you don't want to be identified, you bring a mask or something that can block your face from police being able to identify you and taking actions against you. Know your rights. And I honestly would love to cover the flotilla more because it's deeply unsettling. It's 19 plus hours, 24 hours since we have seen or heard from them. Of course, Israeli media allege that no volunteers have been harmed, but the psychological impact of being forcibly abducted by the military force is conducting a genocide and other war crimes across the world, as well being cut off from friends and family. Keep the pressure up on this and keep aware of the updates that come up about this. And know that there are other flotillas that are trying to get desperately needed aid into Gaza, and realize that the campaign continues against the Gazans. So we all need to continue to pay attention about that. I did want to, at the end, do a plug for the state of Maine. There is the Maine Democratic Socialist of America. I would urge you to do some research. Don't just blindly sign up for events and things. Do some research, especially with the current administration, the erosion of workers' rights, the unfettered capitalism that continues to direct wealth up into the 1% of Americans, the tax bill that is on the slate that is going to be a huge wealth transfer from the bottom working poor up until the top 1% and top 1% of 1%. Socialism is a tried and true answer to that, and it cares directly about the workers and provides workers' rights and advocates for workers' rights, the actual people that are providing labor value, and they're fighting for your rights. And it's a foreign thing in our political climate. And I think these people, if you want to contribute, if you want to just go to a meeting, if you want to just get some more information, they have a nice, neat little website. They have socials at the bottom, and Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. They have plenty of information, a newsletter, a calendar for upcoming events and different bars and cookouts and prides events and all sorts of different fun things that they're doing. Attend one of them, even if you're an ardent free market capitalist. I would say do some research, talk to some people, get some more information. But ultimately, what this is trying to, what their aim is to try to get a bigger platform for the Democratic Socialists of America and to make sure the Democratic Party is actually advocating um, for you. And they are not a political party. They're an activist organization. They're trying to hold the Democratic Party, because we do live in a duopoly, unfortunately, to account, and making sure that the Democratic Party isn't just moving more towards the center, even at the state level. So there are some ways to get involved. There are some, a little about the Democratic Socialist of America, and yeah, I just wanted to kind of plug them because they recently kind of came into my feed, and I think that the work that they're doing in the limited amount that I've seen has been great so far. So I'm definitely going to be attending events, definitely going to be getting more information. So I will relay that in the streams. And with that, I am going to go grab some food. I wish all of you a really great night. Try to take it easy. Again, if you enjoy the streams, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your grumpy old grandpa that believes that the government is all lizard people, or tell your angry auntie that believes that Obama was a Muslim and that he is trying to put Sharia law on the United States still. I don't care. Tell her. Tell everybody. Tell your dog. Tell your cat. I know my cat's walking around here somewhere. So tell everybody. And to all the people that are listening right now, I appreciate you. I love you. And hang in there. And we'll continue to fight the good fight. All right? Thank you all. I appreciate you. Have a good night.